22 Best Deer-Resistant Perennial Plants. The most widely grown bleeding heart is Lamprocapnos spectabilis, formerly known as Dicentra spectabilis. This deer-resistant perennial can become quite large under the right growing conditions. When that happens, it is a spectacular plant, as the species name suggests. Fringed bleeding heart is a smaller plant than its showier cousin, Lamprocapnos spectabilis. Some gardeners prefer the smaller plant for not only its size, also its attractive fern-like foliage lasts through the summer heat, unlike that of common bleeding hearts. Wall Germander is another perennial herb or subshrub that deer tend not to eat. This perennial for zones 5 to 9 does wonders in the knot gardens of traditional formal landscapes, since you can grow it in rows to form living edging. Wall Germander is not as well known as it once was, but it's making a comeback as a plant that attracts bees. Lenten Rose is one of those spring flowers that bloom early in the season. For this reason, it is much valued by those who must endure long bouts of cabin fever every winter. The splendid peony has large, beautiful, fragrant flowers. It does not need to be fussed over, for example, it does not need to be divided. These flowers live a long life, your peonies may outlive you. If you have never given them a try before, you now have an excuse to do so if you are seeking deer-resistant perennials. Large, brightly colored flowers with the texture of crepe paper have long made Oriental poppies a favorite in the garden, especially for those seeking cut flowers. Like some of the other deer-resistant perennials, this classic cottage garden plant is toxic. This long bloomer, also known as speedwell, begins flowering in late spring to early summer and continues for the rest of the growing season with a little help from you. You can make its display of blue flowers last longer by shearing. Brunnera macrophylla Jack Frost is one of those plants that you grow primarily for its foliage, so-called foliage plants. Such plants are like true friends, you can count on them to be there for you after many a fickle flower has deserted you. Columbine plants display colorful flowers against a backdrop of attractive, clover-like foliage. They come in many different colors, including bicolored varieties. Columbine is truly one of the stars of the spring garden. It's not only deer-resistant, but it's also drought-tolerant and is attractive to bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. If you like the foliage of Columbine, then you would probably also enjoy a plant called Columbine Meadow Rue. It is called that because of its columbine-like leaves, which make it attractive long after its flowers have disappeared. The plant can produce white, purple, or mauve flowers. This is a tall plant, reaching about 3 feet in height. Columbine Meadow Rue is a great choice for woodland gardens because it likes a little shade. Rose Campion has silver foliage, and that's probably why deer tend to pass it by. It blooms in late spring with vibrant rose magenta flowers that last for a long time. This perennial is also another example of an invasive plant, so do not make a snap decision about growing it. It is a plant with nice foliage and the kind of floral color that sends some people swooning. But many gardeners find that they have to go around the yard and pull it up from places it does not belong. To help contain the plants, deadhead the flowers as soon as the bloom is over to prevent the natural spreading of seeds. Delphinium is another old-time favorite for cottage gardens. Plant it next to a south-facing fence with companion plants sprawling at its feet, and let its graceful flower stalks shoot skywards. In addition to their deer resistance, these perennials are valued for their true blue flowers. For some types, the sky blue color is as stunning as it is on the blue morning glory vines, Ipomoea tricolor. Yet another plant in the Dicentra genus is Dutchman's breeches. One look at this plant's unique flowers tells you where it gets its common name. Another distinctive feature of this deer-resistant perennial is its short seasonal life. Its leaves do not hang around for very long at all, and soon after it is done flowering, the whole plant, above ground, disappears. You will not see it again until the next spring. Rodgersia pinnata is one of those deer-resistant perennials that you can categorize in a number of ways. Some gardeners think of it mainly as an outdoor foliage plant, even though it does produce a plume of flowers, but it is also a shade plant and a good plant to grow in wet areas. Jack-in-the-Pulpit is not grown for its flowers. The pulpit is a hood-like structure that sits atop this perennial. Jack is the little spike that stands up within this hood and contains the insignificant flowers, which you do not really see. If you like plants that are cute and funky, this North American native could be a good one for you to grow. You have an extra reason to grow it if your yard suffers from deer attacks. Catnip is perhaps the best known of the catmint plants. Botanically speaking, any plant listed as being in the Nepeta genus is considered to be a catmint. Catnip's botanical name is Nepeta cataria, which means it is a type of catmint. You may know yellow alyssum better by such common names as basket of gold, a reference to both the abundance of its flowers and their striking color. This yellow alyssum, when planted in masses and displayed to best advantage, will give your landscape jaw-dropping beauty in spring. Oriental saxatilis is a short, mat-forming plant, making it an effective ground cover. Its blue-gray leaves only add to its value. Like daffodil bulbs, narcissus, there is a good reason why deer leave foxglove alone: it's poisonous. Digitalis plants are tall, slender perennials at 2 to 5 feet tall and just 1 to 2 feet wide. Their height makes them good choices for the back row of a layered flower bed. Meanwhile, as plants that tolerate dry shade, they are useful for filling up spots in your landscaping where many other plants would be unhappy. Salvia, or sage plants, include a range of species, most of which are considered deer-resistant for the same reason that deer do not eat catmint and bee balm: they stink. Deer generally stay away from aromatic herbs and other plants, such as sage, rosemary, and lavender. However, if they do eat one of these plants, they'll likely go for the flowers before the foliage. It is not just poisonous plants and plants with strong, sharp odors that deer mostly avoid. For some reason, ornamental grasses are not a favorite food, either. And, in addition to plants with unpleasant odors, deer do not eat plants that smell perfumey. Lamb's ear is another case of a deer-resistant perennial that is hard to figure. It is easy to see why deer would not want to eat prickly plants. It is not so easy to figure out why deer are turned off by the velvety leaves of lamb's ear. Maybe they are too dry, like eating wool. Lavender is one of the classic perennial herbs or subshrubs that are grown for their smell. And that's precisely why deer tend to avoid them. Ants also dislike the smell of lavender, which has made this deer-resistant perennial useful for organic ant control. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more interesting videos. And please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm.